Skype, for instance, Janus Friis, and a lot of people tell me, "Oh man, that's an overnight success." Say, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah, from the day I heard the word Skype was a success was a year. Say, yeah, but what you don't realize is Janus was sitting in Lithuania with programmers for 4 years. Programming this, and before that he actually made Kazaa, which was kind of some of the engine out of Skype. Yeah, exactly. He's Danish actually. Okay. But he did it together.
Did you interview him? Can we see him on some of your interviews?
No, unfortunately, he's very private.
We'll look forward to that.
I'll try to do that, but he's very private. I mean, I've talked to him face to face several times, but he's very, very private. So, but anyway, I mean, he worked for 4 years in a basement, and he kept borrowing money from his parents and from his friends and all that. And yes, then he succeeded, and then you heard the word Skype, and the year after it was a super success. So it takes 5 years.
Profitable, right? I mean, I'm not even sure it was profitable.
I don't think it is right now, but
it took years and years. I think that's one of the things that I see is American entrepreneurs, especially, and Australian as well, is that they have the perception that, I'm going to be a year or two, I'm going to IPO, and I'm like, you're absolutely crazy. I mean, the chances of that are like 99.9% against you. I mean, what you really should think about is, will I be a takeover target? Will I upset somebody enough to be purchased? Yeah. That kind of idea. The chances of a company IPO are so minuscule that I think a lot of entrepreneurs really should get that completely out of their head from the get-go and just focus, like you're saying, is that marathon and doing that 3 to 5 year window where we're profitable, we're a going concern, and we're something that somebody else might want to purchase.
I think it's a very bad thing, kind of making a company for the purpose of making an IPO. I think it's what you should do is actually making a company that's sustainable. I mean, building something solid that works, satisfies a lot of people, bring in positive cash flow, and then take it from there on. I mean, if your absolute goal is make an IPO and cash in and get out, you're not gonna do it. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, obviously that will happen to some people, but I would say it start out with building a solid company. I mean, and again, so many entrepreneurs have such a rush. Enjoy the ride, goddammit. I mean, embrace it, have fun. I mean, try to make a good business, have fun in the moment. I mean, making it a fun process. I mean, even though there'll be hard times, and there will. Absolutely. I mean, there's always also gonna be a lot of fun times, and have fun with that, and see where it takes you. I mean.
You know, one of the things that I think that you brought up without saying is that if you think about a venture capital window, most venture capital funds are a 10 to 12 year fund, right? Which lends in exactly that you figure that, you know, you've got 3 years to actually get to where am I going to make it or break it, 5 years to actually be a going entity, and then year 5 to 7 is whether it's actually something that's really worth something or whether it's something that should be dissolved, right? And if you think about the 10 year window, that makes perfect sense, right? Because it's like the first 3 years of a VC fund is when you're investing, and then the year 3 to 5 is when you're actually deciding whether you reinvest or you re-up, and then that 5 to 7 window is, okay, do I divest as a VC, or do I actually put that extra money to be that Skype or to be that Facebook, to get to that next window, to get that multi-billion offer instead of that multi-million-dollar offer. And I think a lot of what you're saying makes so much sense. And if you're an entrepreneur, if you think about it from a VC's perspective, what a VC is thinking is exactly what you're preaching, is that think about those windows and those time frames in order to plan for the future. A 1 year plan is great, but it's not realistic for the long-time success of your plan. So thinking about that, since you've been in America for now, what, about 3 years?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. Since you've seen the US VC market, you know about Silicon Valley. How did the Silicon Valley venture capitalists compare to what you would see in Denmark? I mean, you're looking at a country of 300 million, more or less, versus 5 million. And everybody thinks that you go to America to get venture capital, but most people outside of the United States don't realize how freaking hard it is to get them to open up their pocketbooks. Does Denmark have a more equitable or easier to get VC system, or is it exactly the same?
Oh, it is even harder in Denmark.
Really?
Yeah, it's even harder. I mean, it's very, very hard to get venture capital in Denmark. I mean, if you're really good, you might find smaller angel investors and guys like that, but getting real money is almost impossible in Denmark. There are some venture funds, and there's also 1 or 2 government funded and so on, but it's it's very rare for people to get anything out of that. That's why, I mean, tomorrow I'm gonna meet some of the Danish companies here in San Francisco, because if you want something and you really want to make it big, you need to go to San Francisco or a place like that to get funded, because even though it's hard here, I mean, it's almost impossible in Denmark, and and for a reason also, because to be honest, I mean, there's a lot of good Danish entrepreneurs, but they kind of don't shoot for the stars. I mean, they're satisfied with making a 30, 50 people company, and then maybe making $10-20 million a year, and they're happy with that. I mean, they don't want to go through the stress of getting more venture capital and really make it big. I mean, it's they just don't want to do it for different reasons. So, and I hear a lot of entrepreneurs on my portal whining about the banks.
What is your portal, by the way, for our audience? So I know what it is.
Well, it's I mean, it's a portal for entrepreneurs. So it's a message board. We have a platform where you can buy and sell a company. We have a freelance database like Elance or Render Code or whatever the names are, and we several different services around a message board. So we have around on a good day 20,000 visitors and exchanging ideas and so.
Well, any U.S. company would figure that's a pretty good hit ratio. So you're obviously doing something right for a Denmark entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean,
company.
it's
from 20,000 hits is great.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's from a Danish perspective, it's good. I mean, I have a couple of other companies with more visitors, but that's in another area. But if you look at entrepreneurs as a niche and Denmark as a small country, I almost have all entrepreneurs around the portal. I mean, so that's nice, but I hear a lot of whining. I mean, it's hard to get financed at the banks, blah blah blah. But to be honest, I mean, a lot of the business plans they suck. I mean, they just do.
Are they not putting the time into it? Is the idea good enough? I mean, when you say they're not good, I mean, that's such a broad range. What is it that you think that they could do and improve? Are these specifically Denmark entrepreneur companies, or are they just in general?
If you look at the United States, you have more than 300 million people here. Obviously, if you look at the talent mass, it's quite big, because there's a lot of talent. So I don't think the Danish entrepreneurs are worse than American entrepreneurs by any means, but we're only 5 million people. I mean, so I know a lot of them, and of course some of them are really good. But out of 5 million people, not that many. I mean, that's just.
So what would you do? I mean, if you could do anything to help these businesses, would it be spending the time to help them get a better business plan, or what would it be that you think would get them over this proverbial hump?
Well, actually what I do right now, and I really try to do, is try to change their perspective. I mean, try to change their mindset, because I mean, the business plan is something, but if
it's a part.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of here. I mean, if your goals or your personal reason for doing this and so is not okay. I mean, it's the same. I mean, if you have a company and you think every year I'll take off a 4 month off and go to some island and relax, for instance.
Which sounds great.
But not from a bank perspective, right? I mean, not from an investor perspective, right? I mean, it's not just that. I mean, it's some of them are just out say, I want to be a billionaire. Yeah, that's fine, but
there's a process to get there.
You don't have the skills. You don't have. I mean, a lot of them are very young. I mean, they just I want to do this, but they don't have a track record.
So
they don't have the skills
and what's experience.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, they don't have anything, and they think that I want to shoot for the stars. See, that's super fine. As I give them this small thing where I say, if you wanna breed horses, let's, for the sake of that, and have a farm,
right,
start importing whips from China, right? Start with that. Show you. I mean, drive a taxi at night. Do a small business, do a web shop. I mean, show the bank, show yourself, show everybody that you can do 2 or 3 years of actually doing hard work down here. And if you after 3 years can say, I did my web business and we took it from 0 to $2 million business a year and blah blah blah, I mean, the bank will love you. They'll give you all the money you want. I mean, the investors will flock around you. But if the first thing you had in your mind was, can I borrow $5 million and buy the stables and everything? No, the hell you can't. I mean, and that's the problem. You can't go from here to here. I mean, you need to get your hands dirty.
I think you're right. I think there's a lot of people that have that perception, pardon me, that it's is that they look at the easy path, not the realistic path. So one of the things that I found very interesting about what you're doing in the United States is you're going through like a 6-month trip across the entire United States, interviewing Danish entrepreneurs to find out what's exciting, what's happening, what's going on, and I mean that sounds like great fun. You know, you're not taking 4 months off. You're working for 6 months by interviewing these folks. So what is it that you see as particularly Danish as far as a skill set or a product or service that you see coming out that you think is really hot? And over these next 6 months of interviews, is there any that you think are going to really stand out, or that you've done already that you're like, wow, that was really cool? What's standing out for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, the goal of the trip is actually not to find what stands out. I mean, the goal of the trip is actually making some great portraits. The problem is, if you imagine, I mean, the United States with 300 million people, you can make niche magazines, TV shows, or whatever from every small part of every interest because there's enough people to pay for it, right?
Sure.
But if you have 5 million people, that's almost nothing you can do. I mean, it has to be, just for taking an example, I was a judge
but the Bay Area is 5 million people. 5 to 7.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, you still sell your goods to the whole country or the whole world. I mean, it's still.
But doesn't Denmark, as part of the EU, have the same opportunity?
Yeah, but I'm thinking about the medias. If you think about the medias, the Danish people want
from a language perspective.
Yeah, from a language perspective. There's only 5 million people in this world who speak Danish, right? So if I wanted, just to take an example, I was a judge on a TV show where it's called the Danish best idea, whatever, right? So we tried to find the best idea in Denmark. And that was actually shut down after 8 episodes because we only had 350,000 viewers, right? Which, from a US perspective, is obviously ridiculous. But just imagine with 5 million people, that
that's actually pretty good.
3.5 million adult people in Denmark. That's 10% of the whole population.
That's fantastic.
Which is pretty good. But from a perspective from a Danish TV station, that is not enough.
Right.
That's not enough.
So
you need 500,000-600,000 people to sustain a business and do that. So it means that everything in Denmark has to be super broad. You can't focus on a niche like entrepreneurs.
Does that hurt? Because it seems to me like if you're thinking in a different language, I mean, Europeans are far better than Americans at having been multilingual to begin with. But if you have to think a business from the ground up in a different language, does that make it more challenging to do that? I mean, I would think as an American, if I had to do a business from the ground up in Spanish, yo hablo un poco, I'm not fluent enough or cognizant of the different various, Spanish countries to do that. But it sounds like to be successful in Denmark, you have to do exactly that. You got to think about which countries and which languages are going to be appropriate for this product from a very early stage to really get to that.
That's a very good question because, I mean, if you look at it at one perspective, it is harder. Obviously it is harder. But if you look at it twice, it's actually a very big strength. If you take Spamfather, which has a lot of success, it's one of the things, if you look at we do spam filters.
Spam filters.
Yeah, spam filters for the Microsoft platform and whatever. But and we have antivirus and anti-spyware and some PC tuner, blah blah blah, different products that we either produced ourselves or white license from other companies. But our software is good. I mean, and it's top 10 in the world, definitely in all tests. But it doesn't stand out from number one. It's not like it's 10 times better than a lot of other software. But we do pretty well because we translated it into 22 languages. You say, why the hell would you do that? And I think that is one of the strengths we have that a lot of American companies just don't see. Because the American companies has 300 million people to sell to.
Right.
So why the hell would you bother translating? Because translating it's a huge work.
Sure.
I mean, it's translating. That's one thing, but the next thing is support. I mean, the billing system. We have more than 200 debit cards we receive. I mean, if
200, wow.
more than 200 debit cards around the world. Because just an example, if you don't take carte bleue in France, or if you don't take Eurocheck in Germany, you're out of business. It's not going to happen. Or Dankort in Denmark, or in Norway, for instance, or Sweden. In Sweden, I think around, I don't know how much it is right now, but when we started out, 80% of all e-business was by, I deliver you the goods, you haven't paid me a dime, it's yours.
Right.
And then afterwards, you pay at the post office, which, I mean,
really?
sounds crazy. You
and
deliver.
people actually follow through on that.
Yeah, because you have, I mean, they do, because everybody has a social security number like here, but very controlled. So every company can look up and see your credit score, or a bit like here, and if it's okay, you're probably gonna pay. If you don't embrace those things, you're not doing business here. The same in Germany. I mean, if you don't, if just take two different companies. If you have two different companies producing the exact same thing, targeting the German market, one of them is doing the whole thing in English and will, let's say, provide Visa, MasterCard, American Express, PayPal, whatever, all these different kind of cards, and the other is translated into German language and take the Eurocheck and so on. This company will literally do 10 times better. And we're talking a factor 10 at least. I mean, in Germany, if you don't have your website in German, just forget about it. The same in France. If it's not in French, they're not going to buy it, and they won't buy it. So the same in Spain and a lot of European countries. I mean, if you want to do business in those countries, you need to really sit down and say, okay, the language, the payment systems, the culture-wise. I mean,
so do you have the same website like in .fr, .gr,
Yeah, we have it
so that any customer looks at your site and thinks that it is a Franco cloud, a Franco company or a German.
So we do that, and we have supporters in all those languages.
So basically, it's not that it's a one country specific business. What you're doing is creating the illusion that company is specific to that country, so that the individual feels like, oh, I'm buying from France, or oh, I'm buying from Germany.
And the good thing for us is we are from such a small country that we actually understand that. I mean, if you
it makes sense. You grow up thinking that you have to know at least 2 or 3 different languages, versus Americans, we think English, and if I get to it, maybe I'll learn Spanish or French or German or Chinese,
imagine,
right?
One of our great markets is Mexico. You say Mexico.
Really?
That's
I would never guess that.
But just imagine. There's 100 million people in Mexico, and more than 20 million of those people have a living standard as high or higher than the Danish population.
But what is